In the 1970s, a religion infiltrated the United States government. Not just one agency, but over 100 of them. And for years, nobody stopped them. So the question is, how does something like that even happen? To understand that, you need to understand one thing. Scientology didn't just act like a religion, it built something much closer to an intelligence agency. And once it had that, it started acting like one. It starts with L. Ron Hubbard. In 1950, he published Dianetics, a self-help book that exploded in popularity. Within a couple years, it became a religion. But almost immediately, governments started pushing back. The FDA raided Scientology offices. Countries launched investigations. And eventually, the IRS stripped their tax-exempt status. So now you've got a growing religion that believes the government is actively trying to destroy it. And that's where everything changes. Because Hubbard didn't respond like a normal religious leader, he didn't try to compromise, he didn't try to reform. Instead, he started thinking in terms of enemies. And more importantly, how to deal with them. At one point, he literally wrote that the purpose of legal action was to harass and discourage rather than to win. So this wasn't defensive, this was strategy. And in 1966, he created something that changed everything. It was called the Guardian's Office. Officially, it handled legal issues and public relations. But in reality, it functioned like an intelligence agency. Think CIA, but inside of religion. Which raises the obvious question, why would a church need that? Because they believed they were at war. The Guardian's Office trained operatives in surveillance, infiltration, false identities, and information control. They had structure, chain of command, dedicated operations. And once you have that, you don't just defend yourself. You go on offense. In 1973, Hubbard launched something called Operation Snow White. The goal was simple: find and remove every negative document about Scientology from government files. Every agency, every country. At its peak, the operation involved thousands of operatives, dozens of countries, over 100 government agencies. Let that sink in. A religion had more active operatives inside US government buildings than most foreign intelligence groups. So how do you actually pull that off? Well, they got jobs, low-level, forgettable positions. Clerks, assistants, typists, positions no one pays attention to. And once they were inside, they started copying documents, photographing files, and passing that information up the chain. In one case, a single operative copied tens of thousands of pages from the IRS, and that was just one target. They didn't stop there. They targeted the Department of Justice, the DEA, federal intelligence offices, medical organizations, and much more. They broke into offices, used fake credentials, installed surveillance equipment, and they weren't just collecting information, they were building dossiers on journalists, on officials, and on critics, looking for anything they could use, which leads to the darkest part of this story. Because they didn't just stay at the government level. It got personal. There was a journalist named Paulette Cooper. She wrote a book criticizing Scientology, and the church responded by declaring full war on her. They sued her repeatedly, they surveilled her, they broke into private records, and then they tried something much worse. They tried to frame her for threatening the President of the United States. Get her fingerprints on paper, type a threat, send it to the government, then report her. She was indicted and was facing prison for something she didn't do, and it almost worked. So how does something this big finally fall apart? It didn't come from the outside. It of course came from the inside. One of the operatives got caught, and eventually, because of the way Scientology treated him, he flipped. He gave the FBI everything. In 1977, the FBI launched massive coordinated raids. Across multiple cities, hundreds of agents, they seized tens of thousands of documents. And inside those files was everything. Multiple top officials were convicted, including Hubbard's wife. Hubbard himself, he was named an unindicted co-conspirator. He took the opportunity and disappeared. So you'd think that's where the story ends. The organization got exposed, leaders were jailed, and the system was dismantled. But that's not at all what happened. Because the Guardian's office didn't really disappear. It was replaced by something new. The Guardian's office became the Office of Special Affairs. It had the same function, just a different name. Former insiders have testified that many of the same practices continued, which raises a bigger question. Did the strategy actually fail? Because decades later, Scientology regained its tax-exempt status. It's still operating, still defending itself aggressively, still controlling information, so maybe the real takeaway isn't just what happened in the 1970s. It's that a religion built an intelligence operation, took on the US government, and despite everything, it's still here.